Imagine taking command of a nation at 20 years old and conquering most of the known world before you turn 30. In 356 BC, Macedon was an ancient kingdom in northern Greece. From an early age, Alexander was surrounded by his mother's insistence that he was destined for a life of conquest. His father, King Philip II, transformed Macedon into the dominant military power of the region. He took a fractured state and built a professional army that redefined warfare in the 4th century BC. But in 336 BC, Philip was assassinated. At 20, Alexander faced an immediate internal struggle for the throne, while neighboring states prepared to invade. To prevent the kingdom from being carved up by his enemies, Alexander moved with speed to crush rebellions across Greece and eliminate rivals to his crown. While he secured his power through swift action, his long-term success was rooted in his intellectual preparation. When Alexander was 13, Philip hired the philosopher Aristotle to serve as the prince's personal tutor. Alexander spent years analyzing science, literature, and politics. He approached these subjects with the same intensity he would later apply to military strategy. This education provided an analytical framework. On the battlefield, he looked for the underlying logic of terrain and formation that his opponents often overlooked. In 334 BC, Alexander crossed into Asia with 40,000 soldiers to challenge the Persian Empire. At the Battle of Issus, he faced the Persian king Darius III, who commanded a force that vastly outnumbered his own. This map shows the Persian advantage. Their larger red units threatened to surround the smaller Macedonian line in blue. But Alexander utilized the narrow landscape. By anchoring his flanks against the terrain, he forced the Persians into a bottleneck where their numbers were ineffective. He then led a high-speed cavalry charge toward the Persian center. The pressure forced Darius to abandon the field, sending his massive army into a panicked retreat. The victory at Issus demonstrated that structural discipline could dismantle a massive, uncoordinated force. Moving south into Egypt, Alexander found he was welcomed as a liberator. He halted his march to found a new city on the Mediterranean coast. He named it Alexandria. He envisioned a settlement that would serve as a global center for the sciences and literature he had studied in his youth, eventually becoming home to one of the greatest libraries in history. Alexandria remains his most enduring city, shifting his legacy from that of a nomadic soldier to a builder of institutions. In 331 BC, the campaign reached its climax at the Battle of Gaugamela. Darius had gathered an even larger army on a wide, flat plain. This diagram shows the Persian plan. Their line stretched for miles, curving to surround Alexander. But he ordered his troops to march outward at an angle. As the Persians shifted to match, their formations stretched until a critical gap opened in the center. Seizing the moment, Alexander turned his heavy cavalry and drove directly into that opening, launching a daring strike right at the Persian command. Once again, Darius fled, and the Persian Empire collapsed. Alexander was now the ruler of the largest empire the world had ever seen. He dismantled the Persian superpower not by matching their scale, but by forcing their formations to break. He continued his march into India, crossing mountains and deserts to fight King Porus. After years of constant combat, his men reached their limit. For the first time, they refused to follow his orders, forcing him to turn back. In 323 BC, Alexander returned to Babylon. At 32 years old, he became suddenly ill and died after several days. Whether his death was the result of disease or poisoning remains an unsolved mystery. His expansion was eventually stopped not by a rival army, but by the physical exhaustion of his men and the sudden failure of his own health. In 13 years, Alexander spread Greek culture and language across 3 continents. This map highlights the extent of his influence. He founded more than 20 cities, creating new trade routes and cultural links that would last for centuries. His tactical innovations are still required reading for students in military academies today. Although his empire dissolved shortly after his death, the cities and networks he built facilitated the growth of civilizations that followed. Alexander's victory was not in the land he briefly held, but in the history he created.